story was a story that was written for Sunday Story Live back in August, and performed it to a live audience, and then also streamed to Facebook Live and onto Cabin Radio as well. But unfortunately the internet was playing up, so the full version hasn't actually been seen for anyone who wasn't there, and it's taken me a few weeks to get my act together, but here it is now recorded for anyone that wasn't able to be there on the evening. It's called Dirty Plates, and I hope you enjoy it. You can tell a lot about a person by what they leave on their plate. Chewing gum, lazy, disrespectful, expectant, ignorant. Half of what they ordered, knows their own mind, won't be governed by the portion president. I don't care if you've given me an adequate serving. I've decided it's too much, and I've got enough self-control and self-respect to leave what I don't need. Great if you can do it. I can't. I eat what I'm given and what I've paid for. I'm one of the ones asking for some free marmalade to dollop on my spare crust so that I'm sure to leave nothing but spillages and crumbs. Surplus rubbish. That one's annoying. It's usually parents of small children. Sorry, but it is. Any opportunity to offload some of the crap they carry around with them. Oh, lovely, a cafe stop. I'll order a latte and leave minus a yoghurt pot, some wipes, a tissue, and this bit of Lego Sebastian keeps trying to swallow. But the day that I took his plate, I could just about make them out, but I knew what they were. They were tears, just rolling the crumbs around the rim, waiting to be washed away. Washed away by me. It was a balmy autumn day, thanks to climate change, probably. The November rain had been replaced with beams of sepia sun across the rolling hills, and when I arrived at the cafe that morning, I had a strange feeling of hope. I couldn't place it, but there was a sense that the day would bring something different. The cafe was immaculate, as I'd left it the night before, easier to achieve when it was quiet, and it smelled of fresh cinnamon buns that I'd prepped yesterday evening, ready to go in the oven. Doug, my pug, was with me. He kept me company on quiet days on the premise that he got the warmest spot to sleep in and some smoked salmon and scrambled eggs for breakfast. Expensive tastes, that boy. The cafe was just back from the South Oxford Canal and was the first food and drink point after a long stretch of 9 locks, so we got incredibly busy in the height of summer with the narrowboat holiday makers, but less so out of season. The liveaboards tended to dine out less, self-sufficient with Tesco delivery meeting points, and everything they needed for their efficient, compact lives meant we didn't see them too often. We enjoyed lavishing them with cake on special occasions though, and sometimes having the place ready with balloons and party blowers if it was a big birthday. When we took the cafe on, Jake and I had expected the downtimes and had looked forward to them. We knew that we'd work our bottoms off in the summer madness, and then the cooler months would be when we'd get time for ourselves. Morning walks and afternoon picnics. Holidays on the canal and nights in the cottage, drinking champagne and by the roaring fire. I never factored the possibility of doing the quiet times alone. The cafe was called Butter Dreams. It was Jake's idea. He was always playing on words and doing cheesy puns. We wanted something that referenced the boats but wasn't too obvious. Have you worked it out? It's from Row Your Boat. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. I thought he was joking, but it stuck. I loved the summers and I braced myself for the winters. There was always something to do, so I kept myself busy, and if there wasn't, I'd find something. I even attempted the DIY stuff, which I hated so much and was so terrible at. I was slowly bodging the place bit by bit to avoid a wandering mind and free time. Doug was great company when he was awake, but I missed having real interaction. I missed having a connection. If I'm honest, I was lonely. Don't get me wrong, I was grateful for this idyllic life, living the dream of many, but if there's not many people around, that's okay. If you're already in a partnership or a family, you have your own companionship and fun and love, and you enjoy the peace together. You look at it adoringly. You breathe it in. You feel it together. If If you're alone, it can catch you unawares. One minute you're admiring the red sky as delighted as a shepherd, and the next it reminds you of everything you've lost. No shepherd's warning. I hadn't noticed him when he walked in. I was in the kitchen and Beryl, who did a few hours over lunchtime, had taken his order and delivered it to him. It was just a black coffee and a brownie, judging by the crumbs that absorbed some of the sadness on the plate. Seemed like he'd added his own sweetener to the coffee too, in the form of a nip of rum. No wonder he never wanted milk. He had longish auburn hair, not purposefully grown. It had the shape of a neat trim that had been neglected as it fell in shiny layers over his ears. His skin was brown and weathered, sunspots on his arms and cheeks like you might see on a sea fisherman or a couple who were spending their retirement in Spain. He looked skinny in body with big strong arms, like somebody who did physical work for a living rather than somebody who ate protein shakes and bench pressed. His large shoulders were hunched. He stared straight ahead. I startled him. "They say tea makes everything better," I said as I plonked the heavy pot down on his table. He flinched and then looked up at me. "Trauma, drama, getting soaked, waiting for the bus, giving away your own blood, it cures all evils." His eyes looked exhausted and glazed like a man in aftershock. There was no attempt to entertain my small talk, even to acknowledge it. "But I think the key is to share a pot," I said, arranging 2 cups, some white sugar lumps and some milk. The pot was large and I had a tea cosy to hand so we could sit there for a while drinking without needing to get up. It was almost closing time and we never got people in this late, so I was confident that we wouldn't be disturbed. It would be getting dark soon, and with no street lamps, people tended not to venture out post-dusk. I sat opposite him and, high-levelled with his eye line, he lowered his gaze to avoid me. We sat in silence for several minutes, me looking around the room, pretending to be casual, him staring straight down in case he caught my eye. He seemed determined to escape communication. He had a childlike quality. If you ignore them, they will go away. I wanted to appear strong, so he let me in, but like it was no big deal, so that he didn't feel pressured. Inside, I was petrified. It's strange. Right there, sitting opposite each other, was the most connection I'd had in a long time, with someone who was trying to avoid me at all costs. But it was real, and you could feel emotion in the air. It wasn't niceties. It wasn't, "Hello, my love, how you doing today? Good? Oh, yeah, I know, this weather." It was nerves, anger, raw energy, vulnerability. I poured the tea. The milk first thing was in the old days when the tea was so hot that it didn't crack the china, but we don't need to worry about it in these cups. A lot of people get tea bag anxiety, but don't worry, I stirred the pot so the tannins won't scum up the surface. "I don't need your help or your company," he snapped. His voice rasped like he hadn't spoken to anyone for a while. His eyes lifted as he said it, but as they met mine, they softened. "I know," I said. "I'm not doing this for you. I need the company." As I said those words, a wash of feeling came forward and my eyes welled, briefly. I never admitted being lonely, and if I ever said it out loud, even to Doug, the tears would come. It was brief enough to cover up, I hoped, and regain my sentence. "You don't have to talk to me, but I'll just sit here and drink my tea if you don't mind. I never get to use this pot because I've got nobody to share it with, and it's my favourite." He reached for a few lumps of sugar. His fingers were black, and it was then that I noticed that he smelled of smoke. The sugar lump shook as it travelled on his spoon over to his cup. 3 times. We both watched it. The plops and then the stir seemed like they were in surround sound. It overpowered the distant dishwasher noise from the kitchen and the ambient tones of Otis Redding on the record player. I was determined not to speak first. I'd promised he didn't have to make small talk, and I wanted to keep my word, but it is impossible to drink a much-needed cup of tea without making an involuntary remark of appreciation. Sometimes a gasp, sometimes an ooh, but mine was usually an oh dear. It sort of referenced the day, the break from it, tiredness maybe. Maybe it meant nothing, but it made me laugh and I got the giggles. And then, when you're not supposed to laugh, it makes you worse, and I really started to lose it. It was interspersed with me trying to explain. Sorry. I'm not laughing about this. It's the oh dear. It's just so weird. It didn't really make any sense, I'm sure, but I'm sure I saw the corners of his mouth turn up. And as I began to calm myself with whoo, whoos, and hand gestures to settle me down, I said, oh dear, again, and it started me off and I couldn't stop. And then he started laughing too. I mean, they say it's infectious. And so we sat and laughed and cried for several minutes, faces scrunched up and soaking wet with tears, silent shoulders shaking, interspersed with the odd scream and moan. It was such a release and a relief. Isn't it weird how crying and laughing are so similar, but happiness and sadness are so far apart? He spoke with a Yorkshire accent. I hadn't noticed it before. I realised his raspiness wasn't temporary. It was how he sounded. I'm not sure they are, I replied with a question in my voice. When you're so happy, it feels so devastating when it's taken away. I'm sure the less happy you are, the less painful it would be to lose it. He raised his eyebrows as he accepted the thought. He was still wiping tears. I wasn't sure if they were laughing ones or pain. I think maybe they were a mixture of both. Heightened emotion, I demonstrated by raising my hands. Happiness is big. Sadness is big. Feeling less is less. It's down here somewhere with vanilla ice cream and beige cushions, easy jobs, straight routines, and taking the hand that you're dealt. Up here with the big guys, we have following your dreams, taking risks, and having a little faith. Ha! Faith, he scoffed, almost barked. It made him cough. Faith that it works both ways. Faith that when you're sad, finding happiness again will be the best feeling in the world because you'll know how special it is. You'll know how much you have to cherish it and how lucky you are to have it. Wishful thinking, he said. Call it that if you like. I call it hope. You can't lose everything if you've still got that. Well, I haven't. He looked down again momentarily and then reached for the teapot to distract from his statement. Pouring while he spoke made it feel like an everyday conversation. I've got nothing, he said. The teapot landed harder on the table than it should. He went to repeat the shaky journey of the sugar lump and I stopped his hand with mine. His hands were warm and dark and I realised mine were pale and really cold. We stayed there for a minute, transferring the extremes of temperature, helping each other adjust to normal. I plopped 3 pieces of sugar into his tea. There's something about the extremes of emotion. It removes pretense. When everything is exposed, you don't need to follow etiquette. It was the easiest silence I ever had. No need to speak or to think about it. Just whatever felt right. I can't think of another time I had touched a stranger like that. I thought I'd lost everything once before. Not lost. Thrown away. But I hadn't. I took a business risk. It failed. I drank a bit too much to cope with the stress and I wasn't honest about it. So, I lost my wife, my daughter, my house and my livelihood. So I thought it was all had gone. I thought that were rock bottom. But it wasn't. My life was different, but I survived. I picked up some shattered pieces and I started to rebuild. He stirred his tea as he spoke, slowly. It was something to focus on rather than for the purposes of dissolving the sugar. picked up work making stuff, building odd jobs, manual labour, and scraped enough together to buy an old narrowboat. Oh, she was a mess, but I loved her. First roof over my head that expected nothing from me. No mortgage to pay, no borrowing to extend, no landscaping gardening bills, just me and my shabby girl. And I started to rebuild her, bit by bit, like the shoemaker and the elves. And she got stronger, so did I. She gave me a purpose. Ariel, she was called. Like the angel, I said. Yeah, he said. I felt like she'd been sent to save me. I didn't know about Ariel as the Archangel of Healing. Sounds soppy, I know. No, it doesn't at all. It sounds beautiful. And it sounds like you do have faith. So what's changed? I don't really drink anymore, but I'd moored up and it was such a beautiful day. I went to the pub for a shandy. There were music and it were a brilliant afternoon. I'd just finished a big building job and I had a big pay packet in my pocket. The bloke I was working for came in and he said he wanted me to run his building company for him. Just like that. He was offering me everything on a plate and it was a chance for me to go back to the life I knew before. House, car, money, lifestyle. I even thought I could get my family back. So we got drunk to celebrate. I mean, really drunk. We ended up in a fight. Don't even know why or what happened. The next thing I remember is Ariel engulfed in flames and me trying to save her, like she saved me. But it was impossible. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. So you see, I thought I'd lost everything before, but I still had something. I had her. Now I have nothing. I found rock bottom. Well, in all your nothingness, you are the best thing that's happened in my day, I said, matter-of-factly. I'm not saying it to see who can win the woe is me competition or take anything away from what's happened to you. I just wanted you to know that. We locked eyes. He wasn't sure what to make of that. He gave me a tiny smile tinged with irony and invited me to tell my story. From where I'm standing, your life looks great. What makes it so depressing that I could be the best thing in your day? You're right. It is great. I have lots. Dream business, funny little dog who brings me joy, nice home, picturesque landscapes, fresh air, no boss breathing down my neck, no London commute, no unreasonable corporate targets to hit. Sorry. I was under the impression that this was going to make me feel better down here at rock bottom. Sorry. I'm just saying I have those things and I still get really sad. I gave up the rat race to live this dream with my partner, Jake. We took the risk together. We strove, we fought, and we believed in it. We found our purpose and we were meant to do it as a team. I drifted off for a few seconds, like a flashback was being played in my mind. He died. Suddenly. It was an accident. He was renovating the barn that joins to our cottage and the electrics were faulty. The payout covered everything. All the work was done. The cafe was finished. Everything was basically done. Nothing to strive for. No struggle to be had. No purpose. I've got it all and I'm really sad. If I had none of it, then he'd still be here and I wouldn't be alone. There was a beat and then the next song came on the record player. The vinyl had been Jake's idea and it was the thing most of our customers commented on. I liked to play the oldies and today had been an Otis sort of day. I've Got Dreams to Remember came on. The man hadn't said any words, he didn't need to, but the way he looked at me was more comforting than 1,000 condolences. He looked at me with knowing, a shared hurt and understanding. He put his hand on my shoulder and stood up, gesturing for me to do the same, and walked me towards the counter where there was more space. He turned the lamp on the nearest table as it had started to get dark outside. He put his arms around me and we began to dance. It wasn't like a scene from Dirty Dancing or anything. It was more like a warm, caring embrace with movement. It was two people who hadn't had a hug in a very long time, who hadn't danced in even longer. It was two people in very different boats, realising they shared the troubled waters, and if they stuck together, it might make things a little bit more hopeful. That night, we stayed talking in the cafe. We had some food and we listened to every record in Jake's collection. We reminisced about our lots. We laughed, we cried, and we philosophised about life. Pain is growth, I said. Look at our muscles, right? If we want to build them, we tear them and they get stronger. It hurts, but it works. When we're having a good time, we don't question it. We barely notice it. When we're in pain, we ask why and we work harder on making it better. Well, we must be really powerful then, he said sarcastically. I should enter Britain's Strongest Man. I wouldn't mind being a weak, lucky guy. Look, I think the job running that rich bloke's company wasn't meant to be. You were going to take it, but look at the stress and what it did to you before. It ruined you. You love the boat life, the countryside. You still have your pocket full of wages. You can start again. You said building Ariel made you so happy. Maybe it's time to build something else. It's not as simple as that. Well, in the meantime, I have a million jobs that need doing here and at the cottage. I've been slowly ruining it for years. I can pay and provide lodgings in the barn until you work out what's next. And I could use the company. I walked in here destitute this morning, and here I am with a job offer, somewhere to stay and a new friend. Maybe you're my guardian angel too. Maybe, I said. Just then, Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come kicked in on the record player. I don't even know your name, he said. It's Gabriel, I replied. The end.